Hello everyone. The world outside is getting more cruel and destructive. As MAGA consolidates power in a rushed and incompetent power grab, our society is plummeting into authoritarianism, cruelty, and polarization. I believe this is happening because people are craving change. They want to pivot from a political system that no longer works for them. The voters threw a giant orange wrecking ball at the government because they have become completely disillusioned with the status quo. Many believed democracy had failed them, so they did not mind handing the reins of power to someone that threatened to dismantle the whole system. But democracy did not fail them. Our system, flawed to begin with, has been systematically corrupted by anti-democratic policies and rulings. Conservative Heritage Foundation approved judges have methodically opened the flow of wealth into our elections, allowed gerrymandering, open bribery, and transferred immense power into the executive branch in pursuit of monarchy. Our politicians, guided by the parties they belong to, have eagerly taken campaign donations to retain power, accepted lucrative positions at the companies they were in charge of regulating, and opposed any attempt to unrig the system. MAGA is right in one thing. We need change. But cruelty and autocracy won't make our lives any better. We must excise the rot at the core of our democracy and fix the holes that allowed it to fester in the first place. I've made a more detailed video about the root causes of this corruption that I will link below. Instead of dwelling on the issues, I'd like to outline a comprehensive plan on how we can heal and strengthen our democracy. If implemented, we can make it out of this crisis a stronger nation than we entered it. Like any change on a large scale, this approach will require buy-in and actions from a lot of people. I started this channel with the hope that this message resonates with disillusioned Democrats and independents that are starving for direction, something the Democratic Party is sorely lacking. So let's dive in. Let's imagine the transition from regular citizen to a politician as a large door of power. Before Trump and the current dysfunction of American politics, the door was firmly shut, and there existed only two sets of keys. The Democrats had the blue set, and the Republicans had the red one. No one else was allowed. Then came Trump, who wrestled the red set of keys from the GOP, slapped a MAGA sticker on it, and busted through the door, but being the imbecile that he is, forgot to close behind him. Now the door is ajar, and enterprising mice can skitter in. The people are disillusioned with the established political parties. Both Democrats and Republicans are reviled. Trump's success is partly a result of this resentment towards our elected officials. At this political moment, running as independents or primarying established Democrats is actually viable. The door is cracked open for real change to happen. We must slink through that door one by one, and with each new person we must wedge it wider and wider. We must never allow that door to shut again. Our strategy hinges on getting as many regular people running for state elected offices as possible, preferably ones with authority over election law such as Assembly, Senate, and governorships. The idea is to break the dominance of the two-party system and allow voices that actually represent the people to break through. We must reinvigorate democracy in the United States. We must encourage independent challengers to the entrenched parties. But why are independents preferred? The two parties respond more to wealthy interests than their constituents because they feel safe and unchallenged. Democrats are unable to fight our authoritarian backsliding properly because the people they represent, the wealthy elite, are profiting from the MAGA tax breaks and widespread dysfunction. They support GOP bills enabling cryptocurrency corruption in the midst of an authoritarian breakthrough because the crypto industry super PACs poured over $100 million into support for their election campaigns. Our system allows the two established parties to ignore their constituents in the knowledge that the people are always forced to vote for the lesser evil. As long as the Democrats stay at least a little bit more sane than the GOP, which is not saying much these days, they're guaranteed the votes, even if in reality they have no interest in representing the people that voted for them. The primary win and the lack of Democratic endorsement for Zoran Mamdani, a candidate for New York mayor, exemplifies this. We may not agree with his economic policies, but the people chose him over the corrupt establishment candidate. It is obvious that they refuse to back Mamdani because the wealthy interests the Democrats actually represent do not want the regulations he proposes. The established parties fight tooth and nail against pro-democracy reforms that challenge their dominance. Ranked choice voting was on the ballot in 2024 in 5 states. Repeals or bans of ranked choice voting were on the ballot in Alaska and Missouri, even though no cities in Missouri actually use it. Almost all of these pro-democracy measures failed. This was a result of a widespread campaigning and outpouring of money into misleading ads by the established political parties. In Nevada alone, Democrat-aligned PACs and the actual Nevada Democratic Party spent over $2 million advocating against open primaries and ranked choice voting via the misleading Protect Your Vote Nevada organization. It will be very difficult to challenge their dominance while registered as a Democrat. Lunatics like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene of the Jewish Space Lasers fame keep getting elected over and over again because people have no other candidates. Society is so starved for choice and sane leadership that independents have a much better chance of wresting power away from the insane asylum that's taken over. Finally, great tools exist to enable independents to run and win elections. Goodparty.org offers a huge amount of tools now, including a site builder to prospective candidates that are not affiliated with either party. Collecting online donations is easier than ever with tools like DonorBox that allows for crowdsourcing funds for your campaign. New candidates now utilize social media over traditional advertising to succeed in our digital age, which requires almost no initial investment. So, what reforms can new candidates champion to fix our democracy? First and foremost, the most effective challenge to the status quo is the implementation of ranked choice voting. The way we vote, called first past the post, centralizes power in the 2 major parties. This happens because of what is known as a spoiler effect. Let's say John Doe, a citizen extremely concerned about climate change, is faced with a ballot containing 3 candidates. Candidate Alice is a member of the Green Party and has made combating climate change her top priority. Candidate Bob is a Democrat that pays lip service to the need to curb emissions, but takes campaign donations from some big oil producers. Candidate Clark is a Republican that believes global warming is a hoax perpetrated by the Illuminati. So, who would receive John's vote? Alice is the logical choice. However, John knows that the Green Party is almost guaranteed to lose the election no matter how he votes. In fact, voting for Alice makes it more likely that Clark wins, because John's vote could have gone to Bob instead, whose party is much more competitive in the election. Having considered this, John is forced to vote for the lesser evil, Bob, because he knows that voting for Alice, even though that's his first choice, is akin to throwing his vote away. In this example, Alice is the spoiler that can siphon votes away from Bob and hand the election to Clark. Ranked choice voting fixes this problem by allowing John to rank his candidates in his order of preference. Under ranked choice, John would mark Alice with a 1, Bob with a 2, and Clark with a 3, or omit ranking him entirely. John is secure in doing this because he knows that if Alice does not win, his vote will transfer to Bob instead of being thrown away. Ranked choice voting naturally increases the viability of third parties and increases representation. It is no wonder that Democrats and Republicans have spent millions fighting it. Public funding for elections. The primary qualification that gets our politicians elected should not be their ability to fundraise. It should be their ideas and character. The fact that the candidates have to navigate and master fundraising every election cycle means they are not thinking about solving our problems. Not to mention the fact that it is much easier for politicians to solicit a few large donations from wealthy donors than actually run a crowdfunding campaign. The end goal should be a system where public funding is the only type of funding that can be used by candidates. Advertisements should be extremely limited, and the process of running a campaign should be structured to give every candidate an even footing. However, it is unrealistic to aim for this end state initially. We have to take incremental steps. We should do two things in regards to the way elections are funded. One, we should offer alternative ways to fund an election with taxpayer funds. A good example of this is a recent initiative adopted in Arizona called the Clean Elections Act. A candidate that promises to adhere to campaign expenditure limits and collects a required number of $5 donations is eligible to have their whole campaign financed by the state. The system is opt-in. Candidates that do not participate are free to solicit campaign donations privately. Another example of a public funding system is one that gives candidates a dollar-for-dollar taxpayer match for small-sized contributions up to a specific limit, or if the candidate agrees to specific conditions, such as only receiving donations under a certain limit. In addition to offering alternatives to private funding, we should also challenge the corrupt Supreme Court rulings that allowed wealth to take control over our elections. Republicans have become experts at packing courts with extremists and challenging precedent. We should take a page out of their book. Pass laws that directly challenge Citizens United and other anti-democratic campaign finance rulings. Team up with NAACP and pro-democracy activist groups to appeal these to the Supreme Court over and over again. We have ample evidence now that these rulings have thoroughly corrupted our politics. Gerrymandering. As Trump and his cronies attempt to gerrymander Texas and other states to remake the U.S. into a one-party country, we must instead champion independent redistricting commissions. For those not in the know, gerrymandering is the process of redrawing state districts in order to pack as many people of the opposing party into the fewest number of districts, and guaranteeing that the party in power retains their majority by carrying the remaining unpacked districts. Ensuring that legislators are never in charge of drawing districts, and challenging Supreme Court precedent yet again by passing laws making partisan gerrymandering illegal will go a long way to reducing the amount of safe districts in the United States. Safe districts are ones where the incumbent is almost impossible to defeat, no matter how unhinged they become. I'm looking at you, Marjorie Taylor Greene. This will have the added benefits of reducing polarization, as successful candidates will have to be much more centrist in order to appeal to a wide variety of constituents. Multi-member districts. This is an advanced reform that should only be attempted once enough of the state legislature is healthy. Currently, only a single politician is elected per district. This essentially disenfranchises large numbers of people that would have voted the other way. Most of the time, this is just under 50% of the population. We can instead choose to create districts that elect 4 or 5 representatives at a time. This virtually guarantees that most of the population receives a representative that they are close with ideologically. Even in largely conservative areas, there would be enough liberals to elect at least 1 or 2 liberal representatives in a 5-member district, and vice versa. After all, the notion of red and blue states is a myth. All states contain large numbers of people of every political leaning. It is our system that keeps a particular party entrenched in power. Australia and some American cities use a system called single transferable vote that allows the people to choose a very fair representative government for the people. In it, voters rank the candidates on the ballot, and their votes transfer to their next choice if their top choice got too many votes or their top candidate was eliminated. I will link a series of brilliant videos on voting systems below for more details. Other reforms. Since this video is getting long, I will briefly mention other reforms here and go over them in more detail later. Citizen assemblies. We should champion more direct democracy in our system. The people should be the most important part of government. A large enough assembly of citizens should be able to call special elections, oust politicians, override vetoes or veto legislation, and even introduce bills into state Congress. Lawmaker salaries. In a lot of states, legislators get paid almost nothing. This essentially bars people that are not independently wealthy from participating in politics. We should offer competitive, even lucrative salaries to our lawmakers to open politics to everyone and encourage our best and brightest to participate. Additionally, lots of state legislatures meet infrequently. We should pass laws to mandate employers to offer a leave of absence to an employee elected to political office during the legislative session. Term limits. Term limits for politicians as well as judges are a must. We are governed by senile octogenarians that could never bring themselves to relinquish their power. This not only encourages corruption, it also freezes the country in time, as older politicians attempt to regulate technologies and social paradigms they are not familiar with. Finally, I'd like to reiterate my message. If MTG can post unhinged nonsense about Jewish space lasers and keep her seat, then you can win as independent in your district. If Donald Trump can rob and dismantle the country in front of our eyes with impunity, you can win your district. If Nancy Pelosi can enrich herself with insider trading, then you can win. We need honest voices in government that heal the rot at the core of our system. The more pro-democracy reforms we enact, the more such voices will rise above the cacophony of greed and corruption. The people are disillusioned and hungry for change. Let's give it to them. Let's also empower them to become that change.